Now, one of the first things I love to do whenever I get a brand new installation of anything is I always love to make sure that I update the repository. So it's sudo apt update. And so this is going to update your repository so that we can use the package manager. Type in your password. Awesome. So now that we have everything being updated here, one of the first things that we're going to do that I recommend, especially if this is one of your HOMELAB servers, is that you would install something such as Samba. So to install Samba, now that we've updated the repository, let's go ahead and clear that out. We can say sudo apt install Samba. And then when you see all the packages here, you can see that all these dependencies are going to be installed. So we can just say yes. Put on some sunglasses and look like you're cool, because now you have the matrix scrolling in front of you of the advanced package tool. So on this machine, we're running Ubuntu 22.04. Now that Samba is installed, let's check on the status of Samba and see what it is. So that command to check in on the status of something would be systemctl status smbd. And here we can see that Samba is running. All right, so we're gonna hit Q to exit this menu and we're gonna clear this out. So up next, we're gonna configure our Samba installation. So let's sudo nano /etc/samba/smbd.conf. This is your Samba configuration file. There's a lot of default settings in here that come pre-installed with Samba. However, what we're going to do is we're going to move the file to an original file. Oh, remember to always sudo. There we go. Now we can make our own file. So I use nano. I'm a nano peasant. So we're going to, you can see that the directory is not writable. That is because we did not sudo. Here we go. So now we're in a blank slate. So with Samba, what Samba allows us to do is that we can set up folders within the file system on our server through a sort of mask, if you would. One of the ways that we can create folders for us to be able to access on Windows, to be able to access our server, would be to go ahead and create ourselves a folder. So let's call our folder, I'm gonna call this one YouTube, or no, let's call this one Espresso. Yeah, I love espresso. Yeah, okay. Yep, that definitely turned out well. We can pretty much just configure our settings for this. Our path will be, let's say, our home directory. I do not want this to be read-only, so I'm going to specify read-only is going to be no. If you want this to be browsable, you need to say that it is browsable so that it shows up. We're not going to allow guest, because we are going to enable authentication so that other people on the network cannot access our drive. And the next, we're going to have a create mask. So whenever we create files, it's going to use this permission. So we're going to say 0644. Okay, so basically what that permission right there is going to do is 6 is going to be read and write permissions for the owner, and the 2 4s are going to allow for read only for group and for guest, right? So pretty much anyone else on the file system. If you want to modify your mask on how files get created, you can change that here. Up next, we're going to go ahead and create a directory mask. So this is for your folders. 0755 will basically give read, write, and execute permissions to your owner of the files, and then the 5s are going to allow read and execute permissions, because you need to be able to execute in order to be opened that folder. We're going to force our user to be our current user. This is basically who's going to own the files. And up next, I'm also going to specify valid users because I only want certain users to be able to log in. So I'm just going to specify my server PC user, and we're going to create a password for them. Once you save your file, we are going to go ahead and test our configuration file. So the command for that is going to be test parm, and then we're just going to specify the path. We can see here that it says loaded services, the file is okay, weak crypto is allowed, server role is standalone, awesome. And then we can see a dump of the definitions that's allowed right now, and we can see our configuration in there, that's awesome. So now we are going to add a user, and we're just basically going to call it ourselves. Yep, so you can see I had a typo here. Okay, so to add a user, we are going to say sudo smb password -a, and then we're going to put a user so that way we can log in as server PC, which is the user that we specified that would be valid within our configuration file. So now it's going to want you to type in a password. So now you can type in a password. And then you're going to have to retype that. Awesome. So now we've added our user, but our user is not enabled yet. So to enable our user, we're going to have to sudo smb password -e and then specify your user. And as simple as that, we'll go ahead and restart our service. Remember that it's smbd. Awesome. So now back on Windows, we can go to our little explorer. We can click on here. Click this little icon in the top left. This works for Windows 10 and for Windows 11, by the way. And then type in the IP address of your server and hit enter. And it's going to prompt you for a login. So here we are browsing. So now we're going to prompt for login. Okay, so whenever you try to log in, you're going to get a window like this. You're going to type in your password and hit remember my credentials and then hit OK. So here we can see this is our Linux home folder actually. So let's create a file. I'm going to create a new text document that says hello world. And now we can go back to our terminal. We're going to clear this out and let's ls. As you can see here, we have hello world, and we can see that this was created using our permission read write 0644. And so now, if you wanted to, you could technically just use it like this if you wanted. However, if you have a different folder, let's say it was a subfolder, you can create as many as you want. So let's make folder 1 and let's make folder 2. Now if we ls, we can see our two folders, folder 1 and folder 2. You can see that now they have popped up. These are showing for me because they are hidden files. You can view them by going to view and check the hidden items. I also recommend turning on file extensions so that way you can see all the file extensions that you are modifying. Now we can go into folder 1. We can create a new file in here. We can call this hello folder 1. And then we can go into our other folder and let's create a different file. Let's say hello folder 2. Now let's say that you don't want to have access, or you don't want this person to have access to everything, because you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want them to have access to the whole system. That would just be terrible. So let's give them access to folder 1 and folder 2. So to do that, we would go back into our config, and you're going to sudo nano your Samba config, and we're going to rename Espresso to Espresso folder 1. And we're basically just going to copy the same thing for Espresso folder 2. And you can do this with different users to grant different users access to certain things. Oh, here we go. And now you just change the path to where it is on your file system. Save that. Restart Samba. We go back to our file explorer. We can see that if we go to our machine now, we can see Espresso folder 1, Espresso folder 2, but we can no longer access the rest of the file system. And so that's how you set up Samba. And so that's as far as that we're going to go for today. So if you found that genuinely helpful, it would be genuinely helpful for you to go ahead and drop a like on the video as well. And I'll see you next time.